Big story from this game as far as injury news goes is Liam McNeeley went down, kind of twisted his ankle a little bit in that game. Dan Hurley said after the game that he is, I think he said unlikely was the word he used, to play in the Providence game this upcoming weekend, but it didn't sound like they feared it was too serious in the long term. But UConn was up by a lot for most of this game, then it got narrowed down to 13 there at the end. Jeff, any concern there? Did you hear anything more about Liam McNeeley? Is there anything here for UConn going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think from what I heard it's overly serious, but as you mentioned, I think he could miss a couple games here. And he's huge for them. I mean, he's huge. He's been arguably their best player overall. Caravan was hurt for a couple games, but McNeeley has not played like a freshman at all. He does everything. He shoots it. He moves the ball. Defensively, he's still got a little ways to go. But Liam McNeeley's been one of the best freshmen in the country, maybe one of the better players in the country. So on one hand, they can ill afford to lose him. But as long as it's only for a week or two, it's not that big a deal. I mean, listen, what UConn's done since getting back from Maui, winning 7 straight, and kind of how they've done it has been impressive. And I think they've developed a few other guys here, right? Like we saw today, Aiden Mahaney actually helped the team, right? I mean, he's been a non-factor in most of these games. He was pretty good against DePaul today. And I think they need another guard. And DR has been way better than I thought he'd be. Like, I thought he could be a liability as a starting point guard for this team going into the season. I thought he was the X factor, the guy that I kind of doubted more than anybody else. And he's been absolutely terrific. And I think part of that, though, is he does have a couple guys playing alongside him in McNeeley and Caravan that know how to move the ball, that know how to make good decisions. And they alleviate a lot of that pressure of having to be the primary or only ball handler.
Mike, how about Solo Ball today? 7 for 9 from 3. I mean, by far the most threes he'd made so far this season. He made 4 in a couple of games, but just a phenomenal day for Solo Ball on the perimeter.
He was out of his damn mind. Just flat out. I mean, he's been one of the best shooters in college basketball. And that's crazy to think that on a team with Caravan, on a team with McNeeley, some of these guys that are elite shooters, Solo Ball has probably been the best of all of them. And so what that does for your offense, for an offense that already is predicated on ball movement and player movement, the paranoia that he's going to create as you get further into Big East play with a lot of these teams scouting him, that's huge. And Jeff, you touched on Diarra. I mean, that's a guy that watching over the years, it was because of the talent in front of him. It's come in, don't make a mistake, knock down open shots, create if you absolutely have to. And then now you just see what happens with players when they get the keys, when they get the confidence, how it unlocks a lot. And it has for him. And it's the playmaking is one thing. I mean, 9 assists, 1 turnover today, but just the ball security, the focus. I mean, he is. I didn't expect this. I really thought in Maui when Mahaney kind of went off the rails, I was like, I don't know if DR is ready to step up and do this, and he's done that and some. So that UConn just continues to show, especially offensively. I mean, they're right up there with anybody in the country on that end, just because of the problems that they pose and the bind that they put you in as a defense. But yeah, McNeeley being out, you saw in that DePaul game when McNeeley was out and when DR was out, it gets dire for some stretches there because those are two of their main creators. So I want to see how that unfolds over the next few weeks. But the good thing for McNeeley is, when you look at the schedule, it's Providence, Villanova, it's Georgetown, which, this year it's, I don't want to say not your father's Georgetown, probably like not your older brother's Georgetown, just because, obviously Georgetown has a pretty storied history. But so that's not going to necessarily be like a rollover type of game. And then, you get Creighton at home. So those are 4 games that are winnable if McNeeley has to be out. And then if he is out and it's extended, who steps up, right? Jaden Ross is a guy that I'm looking at, especially on the defensive end, has to step up, has to gain confidence in that role. Because look, with UConn, it's unlike a lot of programs in the country where when you're a bench guy that has to step into a bigger role, it can be a lot because of the the actions and the movement and what's expected of you, especially on the offensive end. So those guys will continue to get, I think, a feel for that. But the last point that I'll mention is, I think Dan Hurley talked about it today with the guys on the broadcast is, hey, last year's team, they had a killer instinct and they put teams away. We got up by 13 and that thing went to 30. And you've seen a couple times this year with UConn, they get up 20 or they get up 18, teams creep back into it. That's something as the year goes on.
They miss Cam Spencer a ton for that as much as anything. Like, I just feel like the rest of the team kind of look to him for some. I mean, you see it, him going in the NBA, going right after Devin Booker last night, right? Like, he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something that can be developed for a team. But I think like McNeeley is, I think as a freshman, he is like their emotional leader. And so that's something you got to, I'm looking at closely over these next few games. But yeah, I mean, you develop that as the year goes on, and you hope that they got the talent to get up on teams and put teams away and cut off their air. So I'm not worried with UConn at all.